Hi everyone, Stephanie here. Over the last few days, you'll have noticed that I've been sharing some simple tools around self-awareness. Now, I say simple because the tools themselves are simple, but the practice itself can be a little bit more challenging in the sense that it needs practice. So please note that each step works and builds on the other, but each one takes time and practice on its own. All right, so the first step was about the observer self. This step is really about learning to notice what's going on inside of you, without trying to fix it or judge it. But it's really just about noticing that feeling tone after every experience. And those feeling tones could be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's the very first sign that something has happened. So when I talk about a feeling tone, I'm not talking about emotions quite yet. What I'm talking about here is something that is really the first super subtle experience in the body. And each experience or each moment has one of three tones. There's pleasant, which probably feels like open and light and easy, maybe interesting, comfortable. Unpleasant feeling tone typically will feel like tight or heavy or resistant, uncomfortable. And then there's the neutral tone that generally feels flat, neutral, calm, maybe quiet, steady. And at this point of the exercise, it's really about noticing. Something happens and you ask yourself, does this feel pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral in my body? Now, this is the earliest signal that something's happening internally, before emotions, before stories, before reactions. So for example, you walk into a meeting and you feel tightness in your chest, that's an unpleasant tone. Or you step outside and into the fresh air and you feel the sun kind of washing over your entire body and you just feel your shoulders drop. That is a pleasant tone. Or maybe you're answering emails and you feel kind of flat, meh. That's more of a neutral tone. Now, feeling tones are the earliest signals of stress or ease or resistance in the body. And this matters because feeling tones will help you recognize stress before it spills into your tone or your body language or even your decisions. They create a pause between trigger and response. They strengthen emotional regulation when you're feeling under pressure. They might help you better understand your situation and help you lead from a place of clarity instead of reactivity. And they build trust. People can feel when your nervous system is calm or not. And then day 2 was about noticing the sensations in the body. So where do I feel this in my body? Because awareness doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in your body first. So sensing in the body means taking a moment to notice the physical cues like the tight shoulders or the shallow breath or the clenched jaw. That's a big one for me. Heaviness in the chest. Maybe you're nervous and you feel that fluttering in the stomach. Maybe you're just feeling a sense of ease and openness. You want to just observe and notice all of the signs, whether they are positive, negative, or neutral. Now, these aren't random sensations because they are messages. Your body often will recognize stress and safety and resistance or alignment before your mind even creates a story about it. And this is why this practice is so critical for leaders. When you can sense your body, you notice stress early instead of snapping later. You recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed before burnout sets in. You recognize that the more regular you feel, you become more regulated in high pressure moments, or your presence becomes steadier, calmer, safer for others. Because when you notice, your reactions become more intentional instead of automatic. Now, I know that when I sense stress, I feel it in my neck. I feel the pain from my neck all the way down into the back of my shoulders and into the top of my shoulders. That's my signal to breathe, to stop, and to recognize my stress response. When I feel stressed out, I automatically go right into the stress response. So what I've learned through practicing mindfulness is that when I start clenching my jaw and feeling tense in my shoulder and my neck, I take a breath. I just stop. I take a breath. And that can help me decide my next move. Most leaders are trained to live in their heads. They often lose the ability to notice what's going on in their bodies. And so grounded leadership really honestly starts by noticing what's going on in the body. And the more connected you are to your internal cues, the more clearly you can lead externally. And then D3 was about noticing the emotion underneath all of that, right? Once you start tuning into your body, your emotions become more obvious. You might notice things like irritation and anxiety and sadness or excitement or calm or frustration. Maybe you're going to notice the happiness or the curiosity, whatever those emotions are. What's important here is to understand that emotions aren't something to fix. They're just signals asking to be acknowledged. That's it. The practice isn't really about to analyze them or to act on them. Your job here is really just to name them, to acknowledge them. Oh, okay, so I'm feeling frustrated, or this feels like anxiety, or this is sadness. The small act of naming the emotion does something hugely important. It teaches your brains to connect the dots. You start recognizing patterns. That tight chest might, for you, that might connect to anxiety. That clenched jaw for you might show up with frustration. For me, it's frustration, resentment, and stress. The soft openness might be connected to that sense of calm or relief that you're feeling. The point is that over time, your system learns faster. You don't just notice those emotions in hindsight, you actually begin to notice them in real time. And this is how emotional intelligence develops. And this is why it's so important for leaders, because when you can recognize your emotions early, you don't unknowingly project them or those emotions onto others. You communicate with more clarity and less emotional charge. You become more emotionally safe to work with, and you learn to regulate yourself in moments of pressure or stress. And most importantly, you begin to lead with presence rather than with reactivity. So, controlling emotions is really important, but this isn't about controlling emotions. It's about building a relationship with them, because when you understand your inner landscape, you become more attuned to everyone else's also. And that is presence-driven leadership. And then day 4 was about thoughts. Now, most people assume their thoughts are facts, but thoughts are not reality. They are interpretations. For most of us, our thoughts are automatic. They happen so quickly, and so few of us actually stop to notice and observe them. Most of us go through and about our day believing what our head says without ever questioning it. But thoughts are not neutral. They are shaped by our past. Everything you've experienced, everything you've lived through, every single lesson you've learned, every moment you felt hurt or unsafe or unseen or criticized or praised, all of that quietly forms the lens through which you interpret the world. So when something happens, you're not actually responding to the moment itself. You're responding to that internal story shaped by those past experiences. And that's why two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away with completely different interpretations. Your thoughts are not the objective truth. They are internal representations of your world, filtered through memory and condition and emotion, and also belief. So I saw this clearly in my own journey. I used to overthink conversations. I used to assume meaning when that weren't there. I used to build entire stories in my head and then emotionally react on those stories as if they were real. I'd feel anxious, hurt, or frustrated based on something that I created in my own mind, but not actually something that happened. Or like that time when my boss called me into the office, I suddenly started replaying my entire career in that job, trying to figure out what I did wrong. When I showed up in the office, all that my boss ever wanted was to assign me a task, right? Like, our thoughts are not objective. Okay. What mindfulness taught me is to pause and notice. This is a thought, not necessarily a fact. Or this is an old pattern showing up. This is my mind trying to protect me based on a past experience. If I was hurt by someone in a relationship in my past, my mind might assume that I'm going to get hurt again, right? That awareness changed everything for me. And when we don't notice our thoughts, we make assumptions instead of asking questions, or we misinterpret situations, or we react to stories that we create instead of on what's actually happening, that reality. And we bring unconscious bias into decisions and relationships. But when we begin to observe our thoughts, we gain clarity. We respond instead of react. We lead with curiosity rather than projection, and we create healthier communication and trust. Awareness of thought is not about controlling the mind. It's just taking the time to discern what's real and what we're, how we're and between what's real and how we're interpreting the world. And then day 5 was about behavior. Now, each step builds on the last. Each one gives you an earlier and earlier insight into what's happening inside of you. Feeling tone is the first whisper. The body gives you the signal. Emotions name the experience. Thoughts, they reveal the story. And then all of this comes together through your behavior, your choices, and your actions or inaction. This is where awareness becomes obvious. This is where it all starts to play out. When we don't notice these inner layers, behavior happens on autopilot. We react quickly. We speak without pausing. We make decisions from emotions or the stories we tell ourselves or stress. We unintentionally contribute to conflict or miscommunication or even disconnection. But when we build awareness from the inside out, something shifts. You start catching things earlier. You start noticing that tight chest before, sending that sharp email. You feel the emotion before, becoming defensive or having a defensive tone or approach. You start recognizing the story before the assumption. And in that moment of noticing, what you gain is choice. You can then choose how to respond, what tone you want to bring, whether to take a pause or to continue. You choose how you show up in a room and what energy you carry into conversations or meetings or what have you. Guys, this is what presence-driven leadership is about. It's where it begins. It's not about perfection. It's not about emotional control. It's about awareness. Because as a leader, you don't just influence outcomes. You influence nervous systems. You influence culture. You influence safety, trust, and connection. Your behavior sets the tone. Your regulation of your nervous system shapes the space around you, and your awareness impacts everyone around you. And so the more you practice noticing about what's happening inside of you or within you, the more intentional your choices become, the more grounded your leadership becomes, and the more trust naturally grows around you. Awareness isn't the end goal, it's the foundation. And whether you're a formal leader or just someone others naturally look up to, your energy impacts people more than you know. Your presence sets the tone. So the more self-aware you are, the safer, the calmer, and the clearer you are, and the more clearer you become for everyone around you. If you want to learn more, please follow me on my social medias. I'd be happy. I'm going to be sharing more. I don't know how quickly, but I will. So thanks for listening. Bye.